helping other people through some difficult stuff. And for those of you listening, let me read Viki's bio really quick, and then we'll dive in. Viki Zarkin is the only person alive with an aggressive form of stage 4 metastatic cancer, which she has lived with for over 11 years now. She was diagnosed in her 40s when her doctor first told her to go home and get her affairs in order. I'm sure that was a really fun day, Viki.
Yes, it was very fun.
Unbelievable. And at the time, she had 2 small children at home, was running her husband's dental practice. She has spent the next few years fighting for her life, advocating for herself, and navigating through the healthcare world following her gut. She's now a beacon of hope as a national motivational speaker, coach, and author of the book, I Am the One. And she especially focuses on helping women and inspires them to overcome some of the challenges she's been through. So Viki, thank you, first of all, for coming on the show to share your story.
Of course. It's my pleasure.
And of course, what I just read is a true tiny synopsis of your life, but doesn't have the emotion or the background to it. And so let's back up a little. Before you were diagnosed with cancer, what was life like pre-cancer?
Well, I was a mom, just doing my mom stuff. I worked alongside my husband, and we worked together to run his dental practice. And I had my 2 awesome small children who had piano lessons, soccer, dance lessons, so I would race home from work and run to do all those other things with the kids and cook dinner, just doing the regular things that, quite honestly, that I loved. It was a good life.
A good life, and cruising along. Your husband's a dentist. You've got a great family happening, and then you started to have signs, I imagine, that were worrisome. You went to the doctor and get a cancer diagnosis.
Yeah. And they pretty much gave that to me immediately. They said, you definitely have breast cancer. It's a matter of what and how bad and so on and so forth. So from there, I headed to Johns Hopkins for all my lengthy tests, which was very grueling in itself because it's a 2-hour drive up, 2-hour drive back, and full day of tests. And then it's day after day, they are not telling you anything. So, you keep waiting. Okay, is this the day they're going to stage it, or they're going to say, okay, let's treat it? And no, that wasn't the day. So you'd go back and forth. So when they finally did, maybe about 6 weeks in of all of that, they said, we got you the best oncologist in the hospital. And he's reviewed all your tests and casework, and he's wants to meet with you to go over what to do next. So we're like, okay, finally, right? And we're escorted into this small little room, like a small little medical operatory. And my mother and my husband were to my left. And he comes in and he's kind of going on and on and on. And in my book, I liken it to the Peanuts teacher, from the cartoon. And all I heard was wah, 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 wah.
Yeah, wow.
I just didn't, nothing was penetrating anything that he was saying. I didn't have a clue what he was talking about. Just like, okay, let's get down to it. Like, what are you talking about? And then, he stopped talking, which is interesting. And like, how your mind rewinds? Because then I was like, I took a double take and I'm like, well, wait a minute. What was that last thing you just said? And he said what you just said. He said that I have consulted with all the colleagues here at Johns Hopkins, and I'm sorry, but you need to go home and get your affairs in order. And I'm thinking,
unbelievable.
Are you kidding me? I was gobsmacked. I mean, my mom and my husband were frozen in tears. And the Viki that walked in the room that day, I know it's kind of hard to grasp, but she died. And it's the only way I can describe it.
Wow.
And the me that you're talking to today emerged. And I literally lunged across the room and grabbed the doctor by the neck.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
like the shirt collar, and because he wasn't looking at me. And I pulled him in really close so that he could see me for the person that I was. And I said, "You talk about all these doctors that you consulted with, but you didn't consult me. What about me? I'm going to be the one," I told him. "I'm going to be the one. I'm a mom,
Mm.
and I don't care what you cut off me. I don't care what you stick in me. I don't care what you do to me. I'm gonna make it."
Hmm.
And then, I realized that my hands were around somebody else, and I was like, "Oh my God." And I like pulled away, and I'm like,
I mean, given the
security's gonna be called.
circumstances, though, I mean, if there's ever a time for someone to act that way, that would be it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you'd think. But the room got really silent,
Okay, yeah,
and he didn't call security.
good.
And you thought it was a long period of time, but it was just seconds. And he looked up and he looked at me for the first time.
Wow.
And he said, "I can't promise anything, but how about we start with chemotherapy?" And he named the type of regimen. And then he said, "Is that okay with you?" And
Huh,
I said,
interesting.
"Yeah," because was very, forceful. And I said, "Yes, that's okay with me." Now, what was going on there is I knew nothing about cancer. I mean, I didn't so much as do yoga. I never meditated before. I had no one in my family has had cancer.
Hmm,
So my life hadn't been touched by cancer up to that point at all.
okay.
And I had no clue what was going on. But I knew one thing, that I just bought myself some time.
Hmm.
And hit the ground running. I was, going to research, going to figure out what it was that I had, and I was going to find a way out, because there was one thing that I knew for sure. There was nobody that was going to raise my children but me. And that
Now,
was that.
this, powerful attitude, you talked about the old Vicky and the new Vicky in that
Yeah.
moment, and are you saying that before that, you didn't have that degree of fortitude or fight in you? Is it like you discovered
Yes.
something new in yourself right then?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. Um, I didn't have what it took to lunge across any room and grab somebody. I
Wow.
certainly wasn't very spontaneous. And I don't know if I was quieter, because it's not that my personality's changed a whole lot. I'm kind of a louder person, maybe a little bit, but I would not. I was the kind of person that embarrassed easy. Like, I didn't want to, like,
Okay.
ruffle people's feathers. I was a pleaser. Those were the traits that I also had, and
Okay.
that wasn't going to suffice.
Okay, interesting, and you just instinctively knew that. You had this
Something.
change right there in the office,
Yeah.
and since then, you have been a survivor. You've
Yes.
survived something they didn't expect you to survive, so
Right.
the attitude part of it to me seems pretty significant. Like having that can-do fight attitude. I'm going to raise my children. It reminds me of Man's Search for Meaning. Is that the name of the Viktor Frankl book? Do you remember?
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Viktor Frankl, the survival of he survived the Holocaust
Right.
camp and wrote a
Yeah.
book
Right.
and stated that the most important thing that the survivors had in common was not the robustness of their physical body. It had to do a lot more with their attitude
Hmm.
and how they reacted. And so he was surprised some of those that seemed frailest often would survive because they had a greater attitude than someone who had more physical strength. And so your story reminds me of that.
Right. It's strength of, I don't know if I want to say character, but resolve. I mean, I never said, why me? I never said, God, why, why me? Or I never even barely cried. There wasn't time. That was
Mm.
behind me. I only wanted to look forward and see how I could fix it because I knew I was in a bit of a pickle. I, I was figuring that out. I was in a bit of a pickle. And so I needed to look forward and figure this problem out. And so I was just a problem solver.
Okay.
That's
And
what I did. I did my research, and I fought like hell.
you also talk a lot about following your instincts, which
Yeah,
I'm very interested in because it's also a two-edged sword.
yeah,
I've seen people follow their instincts into oblivion and make really bad decisions, right?
yeah.
Including myself, yours truly. I have
Mhm.
followed instincts that later on I was like, what in the world was I thinking? uh,
Yeah.
at the same time, I've had instincts that have been correct and really led me in the right direction. And so I'm intrigued for your take on that. It obviously worked for you. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
talk
twofold.
about this.
You know, it's funny because you say that about instincts. This was life or death
Hmm.
instinct.
Yeah.
So we're not talking, man, I picked the wrong movie. That was the wrong instinct. That movie
Right.
really was this this was, I'm going to die if I don't figure it out because nobody else is going to figure it out for me.
Okay.
And that's where you realize you have to A, advocate for yourself, and B, follow your gut. And I will say one thing to what you're saying. It was not always easy to follow my gut because think about it this way. I'm told I'm dying, okay?
Yeah.
And the doctor is making certain decisions on my behalf and saying I need to do X, Y, and Z. And I did some research and some hunting, and I found an alternative idea. And my instincts told me that this idea was going to save my life. But all of Johns
Okay.
Hopkins, the people that have all the knowledge, all the schooling, and all the everything were
Equipment,
saying
resources,
opposite.
money. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes. And they were saying opposite of what I was thinking.
Hmm.
So it was scary to follow my gut and go
Why?
against all of
What
that.
was your gut telling you that was
That
different?
they were I was there. See, what they were offering me was not life. And I wanted life. They were offering me something temporary, but maybe adding a year or something like that. That's not what I was looking for. I'm looking for life. I want to raise my children. So their plan wasn't good enough.
Hmm.
And like you said at the beginning, I'm the only one like me with my particular aggressive form of cancer that's alive today. So that tells you something. This is not something that you just survive. And the doctors weren't wrong. I mean, I'm not saying anything against the medical community. I mean, I was riddled in cancer. I mean, it was all through my neck, my esophagus, all my mediastinum, my heart, left
Oh man.
ventricle of the heart, left lung, my whole mammogram, my whole chest cavity, all through my breasts, lymph nodes galore. I mean,
Unbelievable.
I was riddled in cancer. So
Okay.
they weren't giving me bad advice. They just didn't know any other advice. And I was able to come up with a decision that would save my organs in the type of radiation that I chose. But it had
Okay.
never been done before for such a large area, and it's never been done before in breast cancer. But it was a type of radiation that's been around forever. It was just
Let me pause
invented.
for a minute, because
Please.
this point you just made about still having the cancer, you're vibrant, you look healthy, you
Mhm.
certainly don't look like someone with cancer. We all kind of have an image in our mind of what someone looks like
Right.
in a very advanced cancer. You don't look like that. You don't have that vibe. You've got great energy. And so let's jump forward.
Hmm.
How's your health today?
Well, I have a lot of problems. I mean, I'm on chemo for life. In fact,
Okay.
I go for chemotherapy tomorrow.
Okay.
And that takes its toll on anybody, let alone
Sure.
being on it for 11 years. So there's
Wow.
side effects to that.
Hmm.
And I have incredible pain on a daily basis. I'm in
Wow.
pain now as we speak.
Mm.
I had
And you say
rheumatoid.
that with a big smile. I mean, that's quite the
Yeah.
contradiction. How,
Well,
how,
there's not a lot you can do always about your pain.
yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
choose to waste your day away complaining about it and wallowing in your own suffering. Or
Hmm.
you can choose to say, okay, well, this hurts, but it's not going to go away. So why did I work so hard? Why am I here? I don't want to waste a minute of my life. I'm still alive. I might be
Yeah.
hurting, but I don't want to waste my day. I'm not going to lay in bed. That pain's not going to go away. So I
Yeah.
wallow, waste away in bed. What was my point of survive? Because then you're not surviving. You're not
So
living.
it's still this attitude thing. It's still this new Vicky, still determined,
Right.
still,
Yeah.
to me, eh, you obviously you've told us very little so far. And in this brief podcast, we won't get a whole 11 years worth of history here. But from what we know so far, a whole lot of this, for what I'm hearing, is your attitude of surviving, your attitude of finding a way, just attitude, strong attitude, the kind of attitude that takes a otherwise shy person and has them wrap their fingers around someone's neck. I mean,
Yeah.
hearing, it
Yeah.
seems like that, is that the biggest part of your story? I know there's other things, but would you
I
say
think
that that's,
so. I didn't realize it all. I just followed my instincts, my gut. Um, and when I started writing my book at my 10-year mark, I hadn't realized that I never looked back.
hmm,
I had no idea what I had done to get to that 10-year mark. None.
hmm,
And I never realized that I didn't realize until, if that makes sense, until I
yeah,
started
yeah,
writing the book. I think your brain and your mind is a very kind, um, you know, organ or being. I'm not quite sure what the brain is considered, but it was kind to me, and it sheltered me from some of the harsher realities of what I had actually done to get from point A to point B. And so as I was writing the book, which was not only a healing thing for me, but it was excruciatingly difficult. I
hmm,
mean, I had to now walk in my loved one's shoes. So not only did I start remembering what I had done to get to where I am, I'm now witnessing my loved ones go through their pain. And it was a painful, more painful to see what they had gone through than it was for
interesting.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But but as I was writing, and it was revealing more and more what I had done to get to that place, I you know I won't look back. I mean, I just um still, it amazes me what I had done, but I'm surviving still. And I made it was revealed to me that I made a promise to God that if I could raise my children, that I would help women. And that is what I plan to do. And so I have better things to do with my life than wallow in my discomfort
Hmm.
and all my fighting with insurance companies that I still do on a daily basis. It is exhausting to be me, I must say. But I much rather concentrate on all the good things that I have and all the blessings that I have and that family and those friends that stood by me. That's so important to me.
And in the book, one of the things you discuss and try to help other people understand is the do's and don'ts of talking to your family, relatives, friends
Mhm.
about it. What did you learn in that process?
I learned a lot when I wrote my book. And in fact, I'm creating a workshop. It's kind of my way of giving
Hmm.
back on Zoom. It's a course. I spent some time teaching myself how to write and teach a course so that I could kind of harness my own passion. And so I would be able to share more with others and help in a better way if I could harness my own passions and my own learnings. And in fact, I'm naming that course, There's More to Cancer Than the Diagnosis. And that brings me
Ah,
back to your question. And that is that, so what I teach in that class is all those answers that you're just asking me about how I was able to tell my small children you know um, how you find the doctor, how you can not go bankrupt from insurance companies, all the tricks that I actually taught myself along the way, because my goal is I don't want anyone to ever be in my position again. um, when you go to treatment, you have to have the positive attitude. um, and I was lucky that I was as strong as I was, because going into treatment, I could have been defeated. I mean, there was, insurance companies were all over me about, not paying for this and not paying for that. You know,
hmm.
just the radiation treatment alone was over $500,000. My
Oh,
parents put their two houses up for collateral. I
wow.
was didn't want to bankrupt my family. The pressures and the stress. That's why I named this course There's More to Cancer Than the Diagnosis, because when I was diagnosed and told to go home and get my affairs in order, I thought, oh my God, that is like the worst thing. But it really wasn't the worst thing. It was what came after was the worst thing. And
Hmm.
so if I can alleviate that for other people with my course or my workshop, so that way they can put all those pitfalls behind them and they can go into treatment strong and positive, because people die. And people are dying just because of the stress. I mean, the enormous amount of stress that you're under before you even enter your treatment. I mean,
Hmm.
do I have the right doctor? Is this the right plan for me? Oh my gosh. And all your family members are telling you 15 different things, and it's
Yeah.
all white noise in your head. And how do you harness that to follow what you think is best, and so on and so forth? So I teach all of that in this course. And there's no course like that out there, which is
Did you,
crazy to me. There's
did
so
you
many
say you're,
people with cancer.
and is it live right now or are you developing it right now?
I pretty much finished developing it, so I'm going to need to set a date and start making it available to people, because it was made to coincide with my book. Like all the tricks that I taught myself throughout the book, I realized I could put into a course, so they kind of coincide with each other. So since
But
the
the
book
book
was
is
just
published.
launched, yeah, the book was launched, but it was just launched this month for
Oh,
Breast
wow.
Cancer Awareness Month.
So show us the book. Hold it up.
Oh, yay! If
Oh,
you
I
could
like
see.
that. I
Can
really
you
like
see
that.
it?
That's some
Okay.
great artwork on the cover.
I had a fabulous um, friend. I mean, well, she's become a friend. She took my original headshots for me. I found her on like some website. That's the
Yeah,
crazy
yeah,
thing. And
that's funny.
she's here in Lancaster, maybe about a half an hour away. And she's a photographer and a graphic artist. And she just, I think we developed such a nice relationship that her name is Heather Schertzer, by the way. And I
A
think that,
plug for Heather if you're looking
yeah,
for some
plug for
good
Heather because she's
photography and
yeah,
graphic design in the Lancaster
and
area.
she's in Lancaster. And she just, I think, we got to know each other so well that we collaborated. Like I'm kind of a creative person too, and
Uh,
so I would say recommend this, and she would sort of twist it and say, okay, well let's do this, but that. And so like together we just work so well, and she just is able to capture a photo of me. She knew what she was going to do for that book cover the minute I said, would you do my book cover for me?
yeah, it's terrific. So the book is available now. Um,
Yeah,
there is one
available
thing
on Amazon, my website,
I am the one.
.com. Yeah.
Wonderful. One, yeah. I heard a cancer story recently on the Jack Cornfield Heart Wisdom Hour, his podcast, which I love,
Hmm. Hmm.
and a young divorced mother discovered her daughter had leukemia, and you can
Mm.
imagine
Oh,
that situation. And I believe
child.
she was about 8 or 9,
Oh
and
my.
just devastating. And Jack was talking about the mother and her dealing with this and how traumatizing it was. And one day they're walking along, and the daughter said, "Mommy, I don't know how many more days I am going to be alive, but I want them to be happy days." And that story just, transformed her mother.
Yeah.
And kind of like you had a transformative moment in the doctor's office. I think his
Yeah.
story, the basis was similar in that the mother was
Yeah.
transformed from all the stress and difficulty of what she was going through to focusing on giving her daughter joy for however long that was going to last. And talk to us about your
Mm.
family, friends, relationships, and maybe we'll flip it around a little bit. You've got great advice in your book about how the patient um,
Mhm.
talks to their friends. But what would you advise for those
Yeah.
who have someone with cancer in their life and how they deal with that person and do's and don'ts for them?
Well, I think first of all, you need to let the patient take the lead, because there's a lot of sensitivities that are going on. I know there was a lot
Hmm.
with me. I mean, I was battling so fiercely the first 2 years that I wasn't present really.
Hmm.
So, I didn't really like to be touched. I didn't like to, I mean, I was just so focused. I left any little bit of me, of the real me, just for my children, because there was
Hmm.
bath time, there was books to read, there was homework, so on and so forth. And I was my authentic self with my children, but I really wasn't with anybody else for
Hmm.
years.
Wow.
I didn't have the energy. I needed to focus on the fight. And they put up with me.
Hmm.
They were not offended by me. They gave me what I needed. And that is what your loved ones need to do, because you don't really, like, they didn't really know I was going through this, fight in my head, but they knew that I was fighting, and they knew that you know they knew that I wasn't myself. And I think that that was hurtful for them.
Hmm.
And that makes me extremely sad, that I put my family through that. But I don't think I could have made it if I hadn't.
Hmm.
And, they stood by me and gave me whatever it was that I needed. and they followed my lead. And
Okay.
that's what I recommend. That's what you have to do. And if the person then asks, then follow up. But if we don't ask for something, don't overly give it. It
Yeah,
can be too
great
much.
point. I mean, that's my, I've never had cancer. I haven't been through this. But I think there's a tendency when someone else is sick, we want to help, right? As human
Yes,
beings, we often feel compassion when someone else suffers, we feel
certainly.
compassion. And then we often, though, do the wrong thing. Like the last thing they need sometimes is advice, right?
Right.
Or the
Exactly.
story about their friend that survived,
Right.
or the unique clinic across the world, whatever the case might be, right? Does that touch or spark anything for you of
Yeah. I
do's and
mean,
don'ts?
I needed help with the research, to
Okay.
get to where I was. And I had family members, my mother especially, was really good at research, but only if I asked, okay,
Yeah.
this is what I'm looking for. Can you do this? And even my cousins, that I love so very much, that I grew up like sisters to me, that, are in New York and Boston and, not local. They all did things for me too that were
Nice.
helpful, not
Right.
just, you know, oh, how are you doing? Da, 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 da. They made phone calls. They, like we divided and conquered, or how conquered and divided, whatever that saying goes. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Divide and
so I
conquer. Yeah.
divide and conquer, because my husband always makes fun of me. I say all the cliches wrong, all of them backwards. It's kind of
I
an
do the same
ongoing joke
thing.
in my house.
I get it. I misspeak so many. It's actually
Oh,
surprising. I'm a podcast. Luckily, there's no test to be a podcaster. You just get to do it if you want to.
well, you're good
Otherwise,
at
I
it,
wouldn't be
so
here. Oh, thank you.
that's good.
Thank you very much. Uh,
So I really did. I got what I needed from my loved ones. Some
okay.
of them didn't understand, and some of them were a little pushy. But my mom kind of jumped in front and said, "She knows. She knows her body. She knows what she's doing. Back off." So I had my bodyguard as my mother. And today my mother's, oh God, she probably wouldn't like me to say this, but I think she's going to be about 82, and she still drives me to chemotherapy treatment. She drives like
Wow.
what is it? The race car driver, Andretti.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Get
Andretti.
out of my way.
That's dating you and me both right there, because I'm sure
I
the younger people have never heard that name.
I
Um,
know. Um,
and so if I was to summarize what I'm hearing, or the way I understand it from what you just said, is the words like "how can I help" are much more welcome than other things we
and
might be
this is what
tempted to
I
say.
think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Instead of
this is what
this is
I
what I
think.
think,
Oh, they're doing
or
that or
or
whatever.
or coddling me too much. I
Ah, okay.
just, I didn't want any of that. Now everybody's different though. So
Right.
what I want might be different from what somebody else wants. The idea is read the room. you know,
Right.
read the
Right.
room.
Yeah.
And if you care enough about that person, it's not about you, it's about them. So
Yeah.
read the room. Just because you would want this, or because you feel this way, doesn't mean it's best.
Yeah.
So read the room. You want to be
Well,
helpful?
Vicky, there's so
Yeah.
much more advice like that you could give. And of course, that would take a very long time. So you've put it in a book. Show us the book one more time.
Oh, yay.
IamTheOne.com.
I'm so proud of this
Those of
book.
you listening, it's beautifully done, and I'm sure very meaningful. I mean, you're
Yeah.
unique. You've done something that other people haven't done. Many, many people have not survived what you've survived. And so it's a
Well,
really powerful story.
yeah. But the book isn't sad, everybody. It's not melancholy. Now, it's written in first person, and it's raw, because I'm a truth
Mm.
teller. I don't leave anything out. You want to know about cancer? You read my book, because it's like a day in a life. It's reading my book is like you're sitting in my living room, literally going through it day by day. So that's what's so nice about it. But I mean, the antics that we got into along the way, and there's funny stories
Right.
and there's humor, and I can be a sarcastic person. So I think that worked for me. I took a really crappy situation and turned it into a joke, or I turned it into, something that was, funny because it
Okay.
was so awful,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know.
And so is the book for the person diagnosed with cancer? Is it for their caregiver? Is it for friends and family,
It's
or
really
all of
for
the above?
everybody.
Okay.
It's really for all of the above. I mean, it's an easy read.
Okay.
So you don't have to have be touched by cancer to respect and enjoy my book, in my opinion. I dedicated the book to my children because I wanted them to understand how I fought for them. And
Hmm.
it was important to me because the book is really for all the women out there that can't tuck their children into bed at night
Hmm.
because they're sick. And I want to help all those women so they have that same opportunity that I have had. So that's why I dedicated the book to my children. I want them to read it to their children and so on and so forth, because I want them to know how much they were loved by their mother.
Wow, that's absolutely beautiful, Viki, and a really great place for us to just stop. That's just a beautiful bow on the whole episode. We could just stop right there, wrap it up like a present, call it a wrap. And for
Thank
those
you.
of you interested, go to
Mhm.
imtheone.com for the book. And Viki, is there anything else you'd like to say before we sign off?
Um, I just want to say, it helps me because I'm helping women. If you go out and you purchase my book, or if you go onto my website, I have an exercise video that I did that's really crazy. I call it Vicky's Crazy Exercise. Um, you know, join my Zoom class. Check into that
Hmm.
when it comes out. Sign up on my website. I've started a movement called Lunge for Healthcare. Where do you think the lunge came from? So I need all the help I can with this movement because I'm going to take this movement global. And I'm one person, and I want to help women globally, and I want to change the face of healthcare. And so I need help. So, anybody that
Well,
would help me with that would be appreciated.
hopefully, my little podcast will be some help along the way, and you'll get lots more appearances and lots of book sales and get the message out the way you want to. I hope that you are successful, Viki. You've got a really important message,
Thank you.
an incredible story, and thank you so much for coming on and sharing it on my show.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's been incredible to hear your story. Thank you, Viki. And to all of you listening, this is Dave Sherwin wishing you health and success.